What is up, everybody? My name is Tyrell Belanger, and I am the host of the newest podcast out there, the One at the Line Basketball Podcast. I am very excited to get this rolling. I've been an NBA fan for as long as I remember. I'm actually a Boston Celtics fan, and I'm really just excited to talk about basketball. It's my passion, really. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I live for it. I, I really breathe basketball, really. So I'm just going to get right into it. We have a few topics, including a lot of firings, general manager stepping down. We're going to get right into it. So the first topic, Jim Boylen, of course, of the Chicago Bulls, has been fired. Now, this comes off the hiring of Carson Novas to take over the front office after Gar Pax stepped down. Great move. And Carson Novas came in and he has shown a lot of promise. He was actually an executive for the Denver Nuggets before that. He was the mastermind behind getting the Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and he's done great. So now he's with Chicago, and his first big move is firing Jim Boylen. A lot of rumors were saying that they were going to keep him around for salary reasons, and I'm glad those aren't true because Jim Boylen he's really been the thing holding Chicago back this season. Before the season started, I predicted them to fight for a playoff spot. They had a lot of talent. They have Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, Kobe White, Chris Dunn, Wendell Carter Jr., Daniel Gafford. They just have a lot of pieces. Otto Porter Jr. Just a lot of pieces that you would think would be better than teams like the depleted Nets and Orlando. And you would think that they would be in that mix, and they weren't. And it was because of Jim Boylen. He just hasn't been a good coach. He's done a lot of boneheaded mistakes. He's not a good X's and O's type of guy. His players obviously didn't like him. They were criticizing him, especially Daniel Gafford, who went on the live stream, and someone asked him about Jim Boylen and what he thought, and he said, and all he had to say was he has a lot of things to improve on as a man and as a coach, and you never want to hear one of your players say that. Zach LaVine has publicly criticized him. He even said Lauri Markkanen wasn't getting minutes because he couldn't get rebounds. Just Lauri Markkanen had a top 4 rookie year ballot, and that was one of the most stacked draft classes we've had in recent history. But Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum and Ben Simmons was a quote-unquote rookie that year. And Lauri Markkanen was up with one of the best. And he was showing promise as one of the future power forwards. He doesn't play a lick of defense, but he has promise on that offensive end. He's one of the best shooting big men. He was shooting 40% from 3 his rookie season. Then you come into this year, and he's playing 30 minutes a game, and you're giving Luke Cornett minutes over him. And it was just, it made no sense, and I'm just glad that Jim Boylen is out there. I don't have anything against the guy personally, but he just wasn't good for that organization. Now we move on to another general manager this time who wasn't good for their organization. As we move on to the Sacramento Kings and Vlade Divac and Peja Stojakovic, the GM and assistant GM for Sacramento, stepping down. Now the interim is Joe Dumars, who isn't a good GM as well, so they're probably going to try to find an outside hire to take over the position. Vlade Divac hasn't been a good general manager at all. He's made a lot of, just like Jim Boylen, has made a lot of boneheaded decisions. His draft picks have been the most questionable things, and the trade, like, between New Orleans to get Buddy Hield, and Buddy Hield just hasn't worked out. He missed on Marvin Bagley because Luka was taken after him, and I can't really blame the Marvin Bagley pick because at the time it made sense, and Marvin Bagley just came in and he's been injury prone and he hasn't really played all that much, but coming out of college I could see that pick. But then you get to decisions like firing their coach last year that led them to a 9 seed in the Western Conference over the Lakers and the Timberwolves and teams that were young and hungry to get that playoff spot, and they were right at the 9 seed when everyone predicted them to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And then you fire your head coach after that, and you bring in Luke Walton, who came over from the Lakers, who had a disappointing season. Whether that was because LeBron was injured or not, it had to do with Luke Walton as well, who just didn't do a good job. And you bring him in, and the thing with Luke Walton is, the Kings have one of the fastest point guards in the NBA is De'Aaron Fox. They're also very young, very athletic with Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, Buddy Hield. And you're doing isolations, and you have the slowest pace in the NBA with one of the most athletic cores in the league. And you mean to tell me that they have the slowest pace? It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense why Luke Walton is the coach, and I hope whoever the next GM for Sacramento is, I hope they just fire that man. He's just not a very good coach. Maybe elsewhere he would be a good coach, but not for the Sacramento Kings, who is just a young team, and they are at their best when they're playing fast, getting out on breaks, crashing the defensive glass. Just, it makes no sense why they're running so much ISO and have the slowest pace. So after that rant, we're moving on to the main topic of the video, my playoff predictions. I'm going to go through the whole playoffs, and I'm going to tell you who my pick for the champion in the league is. So, at the time I'm recording this, the Portland Trailblazers and the Memphis Grizzlies just played their play-in game, and Portland took home the win off an epic performance from CJ McCollum, hitting so many big shots over Ja Morant. Damian Lillard did his thing. Nurkic put up a 20-20 game. But on the Grizzlies side, they also showed a lot of promise. They kept it close. They only lost by 4. Valanciunas played great. Ja Morant dropped his career high of 35. Dylan Brooks and Brandon Clark both dropped 20. They're a very promising team. There's nothing to worry about there. But Portland, Damian Lillard came here. He said he wanted to win, and that's what he did. So now they're the 8 seed, and they're going to go against the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. I'm going to get right into that. I wouldn't be surprised if Portland took home a few games here. I really wouldn't. I will never count out Damian Lillard, and what he can do on the court is incredible, especially now that the Lakers don't have Avery Bradley, who is such a bigger loss than people think it is. He is the primary guard defender for them. Danny Green is alright, but he's more of a wing, and he's not fast enough to keep up with guys like Damian Lillard. And I think Dame is... he could easily average 50 points per game in this series, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think this is going to be a 5 or 6 game series. I'm going to take the Lakers in 6 games. I think Damian Lillard on this hot streak can take a couple games. CJ McCollum, who has been playing great, even though he's playing with a broken spine, which is absolutely ridiculous. The guy's playing with a broken back, putting up 30 points per game, closing out the Memphis Grizzlies in a damn near playoff game. Incredible. So now, after that series, we're moving on to the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee versus Orlando. This isn't really a question. I'm going to pretty much move right on to this. Milwaukee's going to take this in a sweep. Maybe DJ Augustine has a miracle performance like he did against the Raptors last year and takes the game, but the Bucks are locked in. Giannis, they're the best team in the league. Giannis is the MVP, and he has a lot of weapons around him. Chris Middleton had a very underrated season. He was 50, 40, 90, or close to it. I believe he was about 1% off from his free throw. But nonetheless, they are the best team in the league record-wise, and Orlando is without John Isaac. Aaron Gordon has been very disappointing. They don't really have anyone to stop anyone on the Milwaukee Bucks team. Their wing defense isn't very good at all. That's why Jonathan Isaac is I'm sorry about that. My camera died, but I'm going to finish what I was saying. Jonathan Isaac is very important to the Magic, of course, because he's really their only good wing defender besides Aaron Gordon, and Aaron Gordon just isn't fast enough. He's not going to guard Giannis. Giannis is going to kill him. It's gonna be a bloodbath there. Yeah, I'm taking Milwaukee in 4. Now we move on to probably the most intriguing series to me. OKC versus Houston. No Westbrook for the first few games, which is going to be big for Oklahoma City. If they can steal those first 2 or 3 games that Westbrook is out and take a big lead, I don't see Westbrook coming back and just having some miracle performances and coming back down 3-0. I think Oklahoma City in their 3 guard lineup with the 6 man of the year, Dennis Schroeder, I think they're going to be too much for Houston in their small ball lineup. Although I do think Houston is a great team, I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to take OKC in 6 games. I think Westbrook being out is really going to hurt Houston. They lose so much scoring. James Harden is their offense now, and there's going to have to rely on their role players like Austin Rivers to step up in a big way. And I'm not sure if they can in a nightly basis in a playoff series, and I really just don't trust people like Eric Gordon. Robert Covington on offense. Although they're good shooters, James Harden can't do it all out there. Now we move over back to the Eastern Conference with Miami versus Indiana. This is a very intriguing series. The TJ Warren-Jimmy Butler rivalry has been great. TJ Warren in the bubble has been amazing. One of the best players in the bubble. He damn near averaged 35 to 40 points in there. One of the biggest surprises after this restart. But Miami is a very deep team. They have Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, Kelly Olynyk, Myers Leonard. They have all these pieces that they can swap in and out of lineups to slow down someone like TJ Warren. Just throw a bunch of bodies on him like Iggy, Jay Crowder, Jimmy Butler can be on him some possessions. You can even switch Kendrick Nunn. He's a feisty defender. He's not great, but if you need him to, he can try to get in the passing lanes, just bother him. So I think TJ Warren is going to have a good series against them, but the Pacers are without Sabonis due to his foot injury, and I don't see them beating the Miami Heat without him. Unless Victor Oladipo comes out and is back to all-star form, and Malcolm Brogdon just goes off, and TJ Warren's averaging 35, and Miles Turner's out there grabbing 12 boards and putting up to 15 points. I just don't see Indiana beating this Miami team. I'm a lot higher on the Miami Heat than a lot of people are, and just I think they're gonna steamroll the Pacers. I'm picking Heat in 5. I think TJ Warren might be able to steal a game, but I think the Heat are just too good for them. Now we have the Clippers versus Dallas. The Mavericks have Luka Doncic, of course, and the Clippers have Kawhi and Paul George, so it's a very star-studded matchup. I think that Luka is going to struggle against him. He's struggled in the regular season. His turnover numbers are off the charts. His shot percentage goes down whenever he plays Los Angeles, and they keep swapping Kawhi and Paul George. They keep just switching different defenders on him, and it rattles him, and those are 2 of the best defenders in the NBA, and I think it really just it brings Luka to a point where he hasn't been in the league long enough to learn how to read defenses in that way so well. And Paul George and Kawhi, just veterans, and they know how to defend people like Luka Doncic, as they've been in the league guarding LeBron James, who Luka is very similar to. Not exactly the same, but similar molds. Luka is a great passer. They're both great leaders, came into the league as the leader of their team and led them to great success early on. So Paul George and Kawhi just have a lot of experience against people like Luka Doncic. And Luka, I think he'll have a good series, but I think the Clippers, the more veteran, the more deep team, is going to go over the Mavericks. Even though Kristaps has shown some flash this season that he's back. In the bubble, he's looked pretty good. And they have a legendary offense, legitimately one of the best offenses of all time. If you look at statistics, but I think the Clippers is going to shut that down in a slowed down environment in the playoffs, and I'm going to pick Clippers in 6 games. I think Luka can steal a couple just because he is that caliber of a player right now. So he can take a couple games, but I think the Clippers are going to win in 6. Now we move on to Boston versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia without Ben Simmons. So, as I am a Celtics fan, I'm kind of scared. Not gonna lie, I am very scared of the Sixers, even though they don't have Ben Simmons. Joel Embiid is a matchup nightmare for us. Any big man is gonna eat against us. Daniel Tice has been very underrated defensively this season, I will say, and we have a lot of good versatile defenders, but nobody on our team can guard Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid just goes in the post, and I'm sure Brad Stevens will have some sort of game plan for him to try to slow him down, whether that's double teaming him, and they're gonna make Joel Embiid have to be a passer and a facilitator, and hopefully if he can find his teammates, they can get hot. I'm really expecting a big series from Tobias Harris if Philadelphia has any chance. But I think Boston and Brad Stevens are just too good for Philadelphia without Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons was here, I'd probably pick Philadelphia in 7 games. But without Ben, without that facilitator and just that guy attacking the rim relentlessly and that guy to run the pick and roll with Joel Embiid, I just see the Celtics winning this series pretty easily within 6 games. I think the Philadelphia 76ers will probably take 2 games. I think it will probably be a 6-game series, but I think Boston will go into the second round of the playoffs. Then we have the final matchup for the first round in the West. Denver taking on Utah. Denver and Jokic is not a good matchup for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is a terrible perimeter defender, as James Harden really owned him last time in the playoffs a couple years ago. Really exposed him. Now Jokic is a great perimeter shooter, and I think he's gonna do a lot to Rudy Gobert. And I think Jokic is gonna just show he's the best center in the NBA. And I don't think the Jazz are going to be able to get through it, especially without Bogdanovic, who is their 22-point-per-game scorer. Even though Donovan Mitchell has stepped up, and Rudy Gobert, and Royce O'Neal, who I really like, I just don't think it's enough for Denver. I think Denver with Michael Porter Jr. coming out and showing out Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, and Torrey Craig hopefully coming back, same as Will Barton. I'm really high on Denver, but I think they might be one step away from being a championship contender legitimately. But I think they will get out of this first round. I think it will be a good series. I think it will be a 6-game series win for Denver. Then the final series in the East, not going to spend much time on this either. The Raptors versus the Nets. It's going to be Raptors in 4. The Nets just depleted. They have 2 starters. Karis LeVert has been great, but it's not enough against this Raptors team, and their defense is just too great. So I'm going to pick Toronto to sweep the Nets, and I wouldn't be surprised if Karis stole a game, but it's not going to be competitive at all. So now we move on to the second round. We're going to start with the Western Conference. Lakers versus OKC. And I think the Lakers are going to take this series. LeBron James is going to dismantle this OKC team. I think Anthony Davis, nobody on OKC can even slow him down. Steven Adams is too slow. Danilo Gallinari, wow, that was terrible, is also too slow for Anthony Davis, and he's just not a good defender in general. Neither is Steven Adams. And I think Anthony Davis is going to have a great series against them. Although I think that 3-guard lineup is going to put up a lot of points since they don't really have that much perimeter defense without Avery Bradley. I still think Lakers are going to win this series in 5 games. LeBron James, I will never doubt against him. He is the Tom Brady of the NBA. I just in clutch moments, LeBron James is one of the best ever. He just knows the right play to make, to take that last shot, or he can facilitate for others. If Anthony Davis is open for a game winner, he can facilitate for Anthony Davis and get him open, or Kyle Kuzma, or anyone else that can take that big shot. And I think LeBron James is going to do a lot of that in this series, in this playoffs. I think there will be great games in between this series, but I think Lakers in 5. Now we move back over to Eastern Conference, Milwaukee versus Miami. And I think Milwaukee, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said Miami had a chance. But now, just getting to see this Bucks team in action once again, just they are the best team in the league during this regular season. And I think they're going to beat this Miami team in 6 games. Miami might take a couple games just because if they get hot from 3, it is so hard to beat that team, and they are so dangerous in the Eastern Conference if they can get hot. But the thing is, the Milwaukee Bucks are one of the best defenses in the league. Giannis is in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. Although Bam Adebayo is a good matchup for Giannis, I think Bam can try to slow him down. I think Giannis is going to find the Chris Middletons and the Dante DiVincenzo and Brook Lopez. I think he's going to find them. They're going to knock down their shots. And I think they're eventually going to win that series in 6 games throughout a tremendous effort from Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I'm sure. Now back to the Western Conference. Clippers versus Nuggets. I think Nikola Jokic is once again going to have a great series against them, as Trez and Zubac can't really do much. No, Jokic just has to be aggressive. That's the only thing with Nikola Jokic. He has the potential to score on anybody in the league, but he likes to facilitate more than he likes to score, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if he's aggressive, he is the best center in the NBA. Nobody can guard him, period. But the Nuggets team is also very young, even though they do have some vets like Paul Millsap and Jeremy Grant and people like that. I think they're too young. I think they're a couple years away from being true contenders. And this Clippers team is ready now. And I think they are going to win this series in 6 games. I think Jokic can steal a couple games just because it's a matchup nightmare for the Clippers. So I think the Clippers are going to take that series in 6. Then we move back over to the Eastern Conference. Celtics versus Toronto. This is going to be a great series. It's going to be a tremendous series for people that like defense like myself. It's going to be grinded out. Both teams are one of the top 5 defenses in the league. I think the problem with Toronto is they lack that closer that when the game is down to the wire, they don't have that guy that is going to say, I'm going to get this ball and I'm going to take that shot for the game. I'm going to put the dagger, or I'm going to put us up by 1, or I'm going to tie the game. They don't really have that. Pascal Siakam is great and all. Fred VanVleet is great. Kyle Lowry is great, but they're not supreme closers. Boston, this is the first year Jason Tatum is really a first option for them. And I don't know how it's going to translate in playoff basketball. I think Boston's going to be very good in this playoff run. And I am going to predict them to win the series. And the main reason I'm picking this is because they have those closers. They have 4 legitimate guys that can drop 20 points a night, and they have 4 guys that I'm comfortable taking the last shot with. Jaylen Brown has hit, of course, he hit that game tire to send the game to overtime against Houston back in the regular season. Jason Tatum hit that game winner over the Knicks, hit that game winner against the Clippers. Kemba Walker has hit plenty of game winners in his career. Gordon Hayward has really came back to some sort of where he was before his injury. I think they have too many closers. I think if it's in a close game, I think Boston is going to have too much for Toronto. So I'm going to pick Boston in 7 games, but it's going to be an amazing series between those two powerhouses. Then we move over to the Western Conference again for the Western Conference Finals. Lakers, Clippers. This series is going to be great. It's what we all want to see. Kawhi versus LeBron. Paul George versus Anthony Davis. It's going to be amazing. It's definitely going to go to 7 games in my opinion. Anthony Davis is the same problem as Jokic for the Clippers. I think Anthony Davis is going to have a great series. They don't have anyone to guard him. Paul George is going to do his best, but Anthony Davis can just shoot over him legitimately. But at the same time, I think LeBron James is going to take this series for 2 reasons. One, there's so much pressure on LeBron to get this 4th ring in LA, and everyone doesn't expect them to win because everyone has picked the Clippers just because they're a deeper team, just because they are the hot team in basketball, because they got Kawhi and Paul George in the offseason. But I think LeBron James just is going in here thinking that this is his chance to prove to everyone that he is the best basketball player to ever play the game. I think this is his year to prove that he is better than Michael Jordan. I think this is the year that he can come out and legitimately show everyone that he's the best player in the world, even though there's players like Giannis and Kawhi Leonard that people are saying that they're better. I think he has that chip on his shoulder to come out there and perform in the playoffs and get to the finals, and I think he's going to do just that, and I think he's going to beat the Clippers in 7 games and move on to the NBA Finals. Out east, Milwaukee versus Boston. This is going to be a great series, but during the regular season, Boston struggled against Giannis. They don't really have much. What they usually do is they have all these switches on Giannis, and they do a lot of double coverage on him, and they make him become a passer, and then they try to close out the best they can on their shooters. But sometimes the shooters just get hot, like Chris Middleton and Dante DiVincenzo, and it just doesn't end well for Boston, and that is why I'm going to pick Milwaukee to win. I think Giannis is going to play great in this series, and if they start to slow him down, I think he's good enough. He has the vision to make that extra pass to the corner to Chris Middleton or DiVincenzo or Eric Bledsoe, Brook Lopez, all those shooters that Milwaukee has. I think he is going to go to the NBA Finals to meet LeBron James, who arguably the two best players in the world right now. They're going to go at it in the finals, in my opinion, and I think LeBron James is going to come out on top with the Los Angeles Lakers. I think Anthony Davis and Giannis are going to kind of sort of cancel each other out in a way. They're both the top 2 in Defensive Player of the Year voting for me. And then you have LeBron James versus Chris Middleton and Bledsoe. And I think LeBron James can just destroy them with ease if he's aggressive. He just can't become only the facilitator. He has to be aggressive. He has to attack the rim. He has to shoot threes. He has to hit his shots, and he has to make the right plays to get his teammates going, and he has to be aggressive enough to put up the 35 points per game that we're used to from LeBron James. But Giannis could take this series if his shooters get hot, and Los Angeles can't let that happen. But Anthony Davis is going to be such a hound on Giannis. I think that Giannis is going to have a really hard time finishing at the rim. I think he's going to have to kick it out. He's going to have to become a shooter, and I just can't rely on that, especially this would be his first finals, and I'm just not that confident in Giannis Antetokounmpo in the finals, especially against a talent like Anthony Davis down low and JaVale at the rim and LeBron James, of course, and Danny Green on the perimeter. I'm going to pick the Los Angeles Lakers because they match up better, I think. And I think that LeBron James is going to take home his 4th ring and his Finals MVP trophy for the 4th time. So those are my playoff predictions, and that's going to be it for this first episode of the One on the Line podcast. I'm your host, Tyrell Belanger, and I hope to see you guys in a few days. Probably Wednesday after every team in the first round plays their games on Monday and Tuesday. But Twitter link in the description. I will be posting updates on when the podcast is coming out or when it's in the works, and I will probably be posting a more consistent schedule on Twitter eventually, so go check that out if you want to know. I will probably think of a more structured way to get episodes out, but it's kind of tough now because of the playoffs and the games are happening every couple days, and I'll try to figure some sort of schedule out. I'll probably aim for 2 times a week sort of thing. But I hope y'all enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like on the video. Please comment down below any changes that you would like to see be made to the format. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for listening all the way through, and subscribe for more.